I Know What You Did Last Summer returns to theaters after nearly 3 decades as the latest horror franchise to make a comeback. I've already reviewed the other 3 movies. You can check that playlist if you want to see my thoughts on those. I have a lot of nostalgia for the first 2. I watched them a lot when I was a kid. I still really like the first one. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't think the second one has held up. And then the third one is an abomination. So I'm not really on board with I Know What You Did Last Summer as a franchise. I've never watched the TV show because I haven't heard good things. I like that original film, and it kind of felt like that's where it should have stayed. So I never really had the highest of hopes for this. It felt like just trying to cash in on the requel craze, bring back a horror franchise, bring back the characters for the trailer. But I hoped it would at least be fun and would at least be the second best film in the franchise. This was awful. I'm actually shocked. This was a terrible movie. Now, obviously, if you're a fan of this franchise, you should see it for yourself and form your own opinion. I saw a lot of positive early reactions. Early reactions mean absolutely nothing to me anymore because it feels like every single movie that comes out gets early reactions that are like, this completely changes the game for the genre. And then you watch the movie and it's like, what are you talking about? This is what Scream 5 and 6 should have been. And it's like, you are allowed your opinions, but I don't know where you're coming from. Some people are going to like it. I very much did not. I'm here to tell you why. But let me start off with the things that I did like. I think the performances are good across the board. Chaw Sui Wonders is the main girl. You also have Madelyn Cline as the more Helen Shivers-esque friend character. They were probably the standout with their performances. I actually liked their friendship. I'll talk about the individual characters later, but I like how even after the incident and the trauma that they go through of what they did last summer, once they reunite, they have their moments where they're like, yeah, we haven't really been talking much and we're both sorry about certain things we did to each other, but they are still friends and they actually remain really close. And so I kind of enjoyed the bond between them. And no matter what you end up thinking about Madelyn Cline's character, she is probably the standout in terms of performance just because her character is so over the top. And whether you like that or not, she stands out as somebody who's clearly having fun. And it is nice to see Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. Freddie Prinze Jr. hasn't been doing a lot. He's just kind of hanging out, married to Sarah, good for him. So he felt like a little rusty, but it was just cool seeing him. And I've always loved Jennifer Love Hewitt. And so again, as much as I will criticize what they have to do as characters in this, it is just nice to see them, I suppose. Is it? On a completely surface level, it is. On a, did this movie need to be made? Did they need to be in it level? But I do like that they still address a little bit of the trauma that is associated with the events of those first 2 films in regards to Julie and Ray. They don't just act like they're perfectly normal people. I mean, that's not new in terms of horror and not even in terms of these legacy sequels at all.
Trauma. PTSD. Trauma. Generational trauma. Trauma.
They never addressed the ending of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer at all. I guess it was just another nightmare, whatever. But they do address, at least a little bit, the lingering ways that those events have affected these characters, so I appreciate that. They also acknowledge the fact that Ben Willis is now a teleporting zombie ghost. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if they actually did? There are some aspects to the mystery that I didn't see coming when you're getting the killer reveal and motivation and everything. There were some pieces of it that I was putting together throughout the film, but I was just not sure if the movie would actually go there. Like, are they gonna do this kind of weird thing that I think they might do? I don't know if they would actually have the balls to do something that strange. And then by the end, it turns out, yes, they did. They were actually willing to take risks. For the most part, this is a very safe movie. It's very much a copy of the original, but they are willing to get a little bit different with it towards the end and do things that are going to have some audience members scratching their heads. And even though it didn't really totally work for me, which I'll talk about later, I at least respect a little bit of the ambition that was there. It's nice to be back in the original setting, 4th of July, nostalgia vibes. I'm reaching. I don't have a lot more to say about this. This was bad. I didn't expect this movie to be so boring. It is an hour 50-ish, the longest film in the franchise, for no reason. Several of the negatives that I'm about to go into all compound with this issue. They're negatives on their own, and they also add to the bloated runtime. I was actually getting quite bored as we went on. The characters are really uninteresting. One thing I liked about the original is that the characters felt pretty grounded. Helen Shivers is somebody who could have been this over-the-top, bitchy beauty queen, but she actually felt like a real person, and you understood what she went through as the guilt and everything that happened to them caused her dreams to fall apart. Barry is the over-the-top asshole, but even him, like, you get where he's coming from. He's just being too much of a dick about it. The characters in this movie are really not like that. They feel like much more cartoony versions. A lot of them really feel like just those characters directly transplanted into this, but made less interesting and more over the top. Madelyn Cline's character is not a real person. She is this goofy, weird Twitter persona that is gonna be very hit and miss for people. Some people are gonna think she's really funny. I think her performance was what it needed to be for the character, but her actual character was so ridiculous and over the top, and so much of the dialogue felt like it was just this very, how do you do, fellow kids dialogue, and maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just the get off my lawn, you rascally kids guy at this point. And maybe that's just how people actually talk now out in the real world. But man, I found it to be really unbelievable, really annoying, all of this like, yes, diva, slay type of stuff, where it's just constant with these characters that did not make them feel real. Especially in the middle of such a situation, the kind of jokes that pop up in this movie are so unfunny, and some of these jokes are made right after a character dies, and it just makes these people not feel grounded. It makes it feel like you're not taking this seriously. It makes me not care about the situation or about you, and that definitely makes the movie feel longer. The leads, Chaw Sui Wonders and Jonah Hauer-King, are more grounded, but they're really bland. Jonah Hauer-King's character, there was actually a segment of this film where he wasn't on screen, and when he showed back up, I genuinely had an oh shit moment, like, I forgot he was in this. Because there's nothing to him at all. I don't care for him. And then the main girl is fine, but there's not really much there either. It just feels like they're transplanted versions of the characters from the original, but made less interesting with actors that I'm not as attached to. There are a lot of callbacks to the original, some more subtle, just things that you'll see in the background. But the ones that are overt, I thought were so embarrassing. They'll repeat a line from the original, and literally the music will stop. It'll zoom in, the character will take a step towards the camera and like prepare their line and then say it, and I'm like, oh my god, you thought you did something. You thought you did. Yeah, that's a line from the original. They sure did write that back then. How about you write your own stuff? How about you just make a compelling story of your own? I hate that shit. It almost never works in these movies when they just repeat lines from the original films. It always feels so desperate for us to just point at the screen and say, I know what that is, and it's just ridiculous. Honor the original movie by doing interesting things with the characters and telling a compelling story. You don't have to just repeat what that movie already did. There is a dream sequence in this film, it's pretty lengthy too, that only exists to show us a callback to the original, to make fans go, I know what that is. It serves no purpose other than that. Cut it out. It's just bloating the runtime. I was very unsure about the inclusion of Julie and Ray. That didn't really make any sense to me when this movie was announced, because this is a different set of characters all these years later dealing with a different incident. What does that have to do with Julie and Ray? But I'll give it a chance. Maybe it'll tie into the story in a really interesting way. With Julie, it absolutely does not. It's like they knew they had no reason why Julie should get involved with this at all. So the way she gets brought into the story is that right before the murders start, the main character just happened to befriend on a plane a true crime podcast girl who is coming to the town to do a report on the stuff that happened back in the 90s. So they then listen to her podcast and find out about Julie from that. It's whatever, it's not the worst thing, but it's kind of a contrived excuse for how you want to get Jennifer Love Hewitt in the movie, because otherwise you know they would have no reason to ever interact with her. And when the main character meets Julie and asks her for help, her response is something along the lines of, what do you want me to do about it? And I was like, yeah, what do you want her to do about it? She's just a lady. And when they sit down and have a conversation, the sage advice that is offered by Julie is, you should probably investigate the people who were close to the person that you caused harm to last summer. Yeah, no shit. You needed somebody to tell you that? And then from that point on, she doesn't really do much of meaning. She's very much in there because we gotta bring back the characters, we gotta put them in the trailer, we gotta market them, we gotta appeal to people's nostalgia. It's really a waste of her. Ray has a little more going on because he's still in the town, and so people know him. He's interacting more with the main characters when they're in the middle of shit, and so I enjoyed what was going on with him for a lot of the movie more. So he's more like Scream 5's Dewey, except where Sydney and Gale came back to town for good reasons in that movie, they had to shoehorn in some bullshit for Julie. And because a lot of her scenes really feel meaningless, it feels like, as much as I love JLH, feels pretty tacked on, and I don't know that she was needed here. Maybe you should have just focused on telling a new story, really had faith in your ability to write a script featuring new elements, new characters, because as it is, she's kind of just more wasted time, kind of just bloating that runtime. The killer, once again, as is a staple of these films, and it's never gonna change apparently, kills random innocents who have nothing to do with their grand plan. Now, later on, when the motivation is revealed, some of those deaths in hindsight actually make sense, but some of them really don't. Some of them are literally like, you have the option of killing one of the people on your specific list or killing a complete rando, and they kill the rando. And I'm like, why did you do that? And I suppose the explanation is meant to be, they're crazy. They're a serial killer, so they're crazy. That's the laziest excuse. You could just do whatever you want and then wipe it away with the generic, they're crazy. You gotta write a character who feels a little bit more real than that, who feels a little bit grounded at least, who feels like they're operating on some kind of logic, even if it's flawed logic. And it's just a lazy way to fill out the runtime, and it makes it, once again, drag out because we're adding all of these extra bodies for no reason, just to drag out the runtime, just to increase the body count. It's the laziest way to do it. We need to fill out our movie. What do we fill it with? How about just random deaths? I don't know. How about more compelling story elements? How about more character work? In the original, they did have Johnny Galecki's death at the beginning, which was a little bit of a stretch, but you can reason out why they might have done that. But after that, there are no more deaths until the big July 4th set pieces at the end. The movie kind of takes its time in that way and builds up to them, which I really respect. This feels much more generic in that random people are just dying throughout. It adds to the runtime, and it makes it feel more like, I hate to say it, Scream. The original has always been compared to Scream, and I think unfairly so. It came out right after. It's written by Kevin Williamson, even though he wrote the script before he wrote Scream. But it has a lot that's different from Scream. It really does. It's a teen slasher, but it does a lot of its own thing. The franchise, as it has gone on, has kind of become what it was always accused of being. This kind of feels like it's going for more Scream vibes. And I feel like it's losing some of that identity, and it's going for this more campiness, which, again, is going to work for some people. It's really exemplified by Madelyn Cline's character, but I wish it would take itself more seriously, like the original really did. Like, it's a cheesy movie, but I think it's really entertaining, and the characters very much are taking it seriously all the time, and you don't have these shitty jokes thrown in. I'm talking shitty jokes. Even a lot of the people in my theater. Very little laughter throughout. Very awkward pauses that felt like they were in there for laughter, and then there's just silence, and I'm like, I'm embarrassed for you. Why did you say that? Having a bunch of random kills throughout the movie could still be entertaining if the kills were really good and unique. I believe the director said something like, this is going to be a really brutal fisherman. It's bloodier than the original film, but still, the kills are mostly pretty basic. They're okay, they're fine, they're serviceable. But when I have characters I don't care about, a rehashed story, shitty dialogue, shitty humor, a bloated runtime, you gotta give me some exceptional kills. And they are not by any means, they are not special. To give old Fisherman credit, he does use more weaponry than just the hook. There's a little bit of variety in there, which I appreciate, but the kills are decent at best. It's just not enough to carry the film. I don't really care for the entire setup of this plot. It's similar to the original, involving an accident on a road, but the way this one is framed, it's pretty much exclusively the fault of one of them. And you can kind of say that about Barry, like he was the most at fault in the original, but then they all agree to dump this guy, Julie reluctantly, but they do it, and he's alive when they dump him, and so it's like, oh god, that's actually really fucked up. Like, this is a seriously in-depth moral issue here of what people would do in this situation and whether they deserve their fate that's going to come to them, and they weren't afraid to make the characters unlikable in that way. This one feels more sanitized and less interesting and kind of weirder, because the accident happens, they actively try to help the person after the fact, and they just can't. They physically cannot do it at all. And their biggest crime from that point on is that they just don't turn themselves in, or more specifically, turn the one guy in and tell them what he had been up to that inadvertently caused this accident. And so, like, that's bad, but it's not like the worst. Like, if he had turned himself in, nobody would have been helped. And so, like, you should go report these things for sure. But when they come back a year later and they're like, I've been so racked with all the guilt, it's so fucked up what we did. And I'm like, it's actually considerably less fucked up than even what happened in the original film. So I don't know. It felt like a weird version of the events that was trying to stick too close to the original by having it be a traffic accident, but missing what made that interesting. Kind of like everything in this movie. They're trying to stick so close. It's practically a remake in many ways, but they get the excuse of, hey, Julie and Ray are in it though, so it's not a remake. That's what they're doing. That's the requel thing that is all the rage nowadays, and it can work. I really like Scream 5 and 6, but man, you gotta put in the effort, and this just feels like they were trying to cash in on the recent wave of horror franchise resurgence. What's another one that hasn't been seen for a while? I Know What You Did Last Summer. Okay, let's try that one. But where's Freddy? Where's Jason? Who the fuck knows? Hello? We're getting the Jason show and the Jason universe, whatever the hell that is. But what's going on, guys? The direction is mostly fine, but there was one moment in particular where a character walks past the fisherman, and it's really weirdly staged, where we're not sure, like, is that the fisherman? Is that just like a slicker that's hung up over there? But not in the way you're thinking of when you have like a ghost movie and you see like a coat hanging up in the corner of the room and you're not sure if it's a coat or a ghost. The character literally just walks right past the fisherman in a way that looked like they should have seen them. And so I'm just sitting there confused, like, is that the fisherman? Did he not see them? Am I confused? What's happening? Like, it was really poorly visually framed to communicate what was even supposed to be happening. So the director really didn't feel like she was capitalizing on how to build up tension and scares. And that is most exemplified by the jump scares. Oh my God. Garbage. They literally do the thing where somebody walks up behind someone, puts their hand on their shoulder, there's a loud jump scare sound effect, and they go, whoa, didn't mean to scare you. Are you kidding? It is 2025. Are you doing it to personally piss me off? Stop it. Every scare, there's tons of jump scares, and they're all like that. They're just loud sound effects of nothing scary. Like, nobody around me jumped at all. Nobody batted an eye. It's really lame. They're really poorly executed. Felt like this director was very concerned with the campiness. And I was like, I wish he would have been concerned with a good story and actually delivering on, not making it scary. It's not like this is a scary franchise, but some real actual tension. And those jump scares were just not it at all. There's a line in this film, take this with a grain of salt, because it is possible that I misheard it. I don't think I did, but the line is so bad that I feel like I must have misheard it. When the main character is talking to Julie, Julie is talking about how the police in Southport are like experts at gaslighting, and she's like, I vowed never to return to Southport because they didn't believe me, and they're not gonna believe you. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? If I misheard that, please correct me down in the comments, or if I'm misremembering or misunderstanding something, correct me, and I will retract this. But that's how I heard it, and I'm incredibly confused. The entire point of the original film is that they didn't go to the cops. That's like the entire plot. They don't get the cops involved. So what do you mean? When did the cops ever not believe Julie? I swear that's what she said. The closest thing is after Barry died and Helen is trying to tell the cops that that just happened, and she's trying to tell them what's going on, and they don't believe her. But Julie wasn't there for that. She doesn't know the specifics of those events. And also, they didn't really have a reason to believe her. She said there was a murder. They didn't find any murder. They didn't find a body. She got a police escort home. They kind of did everything they could there to help her out. So it's just a line that, as far as I can tell, makes no sense. Like, you got so caught up in referencing the original film, you referenced something that didn't happen. How did you pull that off? Why would you do that? I'm very confused. If you can correct me on that, please do, and you can just ignore everything I just said for the last minute or two. But I wanted to point it out because I was like, anybody else hear that? What did that mean? I said before that I appreciate some things they do with the killer reveal. There are some things they do that are kind of unexpected, but I ultimately didn't buy it. I was surprised in many ways, but I felt like they valued shock more than they valued making sense. When the motivation is actually being explained, I was like, nah, I actually don't believe that. I don't believe that that character, as we've seen them in this film, would do that. And it's so funny because in some of the Scream movies, you have the ghost face unmasking and the character reveals that they're this like cackling maniac. And it's like, wow, that character must be a really good actor because they were acting completely normal in their average everyday life. And the moment the mask comes off, they're like, ah, yeah, I'm gonna get you like a pig and like all this stuff. And it's a little silly. It's a little over the top. But in this movie, it is done practically to the point of parody. This character is like a completely normal person the entire time, and the moment the fisherman hood comes off, they're like the Joker now. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is so over the top. And it's a cheesy slasher. Some people can vibe with the over the top nature. I need some grounding to make some of it feel real, and none of it did. Or you have to genuinely be funny or have amazing kills. The humor was cringe and the kills were fine. So it doesn't have any of those elements that would actually make the over-the-topness work. It just has a bunch of shit dragging out the runtime, copying the original, but doing it all worse. I didn't need it. It's not canon to me. There's one movie here, maybe two if you really want to stretch it. Maybe. This didn't need to be a franchise. They'd sequel bait, actually. No thank you. I don't need any more. I saw this as a double feature with Eddington. You have those two movies this week, and also The Smurfs, which I'm not going to see, but I can imagine what that'll be like. So with those three new movies out, my recommendation is stay home. Or watch Superman again. I'm actually going to go watch Superman again tomorrow, so that should be fun. But like I said before, if you're a fan of the franchise, obviously check it out for yourself and see if you end up enjoying it. I did not. I don't think I want to see another one of these ever again. You got to get really creative with it, and this is just not Final Destination. You can't just take a different group of characters and a different inciting incident and make 100 of them, because Final Destination has the variety and the deaths, which is what we're there for. With this, it's just a fisherman again, and he's coming at you with a hook again, and it's like, how many times can you do that? As far as I'm concerned, once. Bad movie. Didn't like it at all. I was actually shocked how bad I found it to be. But that is all just my opinion. So leave your thoughts down in the comments, whether you agree or disagree with anything that I said here. Let's have the conversation. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I might do a ranking video of these films. I'm not sure yet if you want to see that or any more I Know What You Did Last Summer content at all. Let me know. But thank you for the support. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.